Across the UK, centuries-old churches stand as silent witnesses to countless weddings, funerals, and prayers whispered in the dead of night. But behind the stone walls and beneath the weathered floors, something else lingers, shadows of the past that refuse to rest. Some of these sacred places hide tragic histories. Others guard unsolved mysteries. In their darkened corners, candles flicker without wind, footsteps echo in empty aisles, and ghostly choirs sing where no living voices remain. For priests, visitors, and even paranormal investigators, these churches are not just houses of worship, they are gateways where the living and the dead meet. Tonight we're stepping inside the top 10 most haunted churches in the UK. From phantom monks and weeping women to sinister presences that drive people away in fear, these are the places where faith and fear collide. Keep your eyes open, keep your voice low. Because in these churches something is listening. Haunted Church Number 1. St. Nicholas Church, Plucklay, Kent. Deep in the heart of Kent lies Plucklay, often hailed as England's most haunted village. And at its center, like a watchful guardian of centuries past, stands St. Nicholas Church. From the outside, it appears to be a charming 13th-century parish church with ivy climbing its weathered stone walls. But locals know that when the sun dips and the mist rolls in, St. Nicholas becomes a place where the living and the dead walk the same ground. One of its most famous apparitions is the Lady in Red. She's described as an elegant woman in a flowing crimson gown, said to be the spirit of a woman buried in the churchyard. Witnesses claim she is often seen wandering between the gravestones, clutching a single red rose. Sometimes she vanishes into thin air right before their eyes. Other times she simply melts into the shadows near the church's ancient yew tree. But she is not the only restless soul here. Inside the church itself, several visitors have reported glimpsing a ghostly monk moving silently across the chancel. He is said to glide along the aisle before disappearing into the vestry, leaving behind the faint scent of incense. Some believe he was a medieval clergyman still bound to his sacred duties, centuries after his death. EVPs recorded inside St. Nicholas have captured faint whispering voices when no one else was present. Others have heard the sound of footsteps pacing behind them, only to turn and find the pews empty. The sense of being watched is overwhelming, and even seasoned paranormal investigators have described feeling drained or disoriented after spending time in the church. It's no wonder St. Nicholas has drawn the attention of countless ghost hunters and curious travelers. But those who've been there after dark all say the same thing: you leave feeling like something left with you, following quietly, waiting for the next time you return. Number 2. St. Mary's Church, Bungay, Suffolk. On a stormy Sunday morning in August 1577, the congregation of St. Mary's Church gathered for worship, unaware that they were about to witness one of the most infamous supernatural events in English history. Outside, the skies had turned a sickly green. The wind howled through the streets of Bungay, rattling shutters and shaking the ancient stones of the church. Then, without warning, the great doors of St. Mary's burst open. A huge, demonic black dog, its eyes blazing like fire, stormed into the nave. This was no ordinary animal. Villagers knew it as the Black Shuck, a phantom hound said to be an omen of death. Witnesses claimed it raced down the aisle, passing between the terrified parishioners, its claws sparking against the stone floor. In a matter of seconds, the beast attacked. Historical accounts record that 2 people were struck dead instantly, their bodies left twisted on the flagstones. As the congregation screamed, the creature leapt toward the tower, where a deafening crack of thunder split the air. When the smoke cleared, the hound had vanished, but not without leaving its mark. To this day, scorched claw prints are said to be embedded in the church's wooden doors, a chilling reminder of that terrible morning. Locals swear the marks are too deep and too perfect to have been carved by human hands. Some even claim the Black Shuck still prowls Bungay on stormy nights, its glowing eyes seen flickering in the darkness near the churchyard. Visitors have reported hearing the faint sound of growling from empty corners of the church, and cold drafts that seem to come from nowhere. Paranormal investigators who have dared to stay inside after nightfall describe an overwhelming sense of dread, as if something unseen is circling them, waiting for the right moment to strike. St. Mary's stands today as a beautiful piece of medieval architecture, but beneath its grandeur lies a legend that refuses to die. Number 3. St. Peter's Church, East Drayton, Norfolk. St. Peter's Church is a peaceful-looking medieval building, surrounded by quiet fields and framed by the slow rhythm of rural Norfolk life. But once the sun dips below the horizon, that peace turns into something far more unsettling. For centuries, locals have whispered about a ghostly monk who roams the grounds and sometimes ventures inside the church itself. The first recorded sighting dates back to the late 1600s, when a sexton locking up for the night spotted a tall, hooded figure standing near the altar. Thinking it was an intruder, he shouted out, but the figure simply turned, glided silently down the aisle, and vanished into the wall. No door, no exit, just gone. Parish records tell of a Benedictine monk from the nearby abbey who was executed during the dissolution of the monasteries in the 16th century. Some believe his spirit is tied to St. Peter's because he once served here before his death. The most chilling part, witnesses claim he doesn't simply appear, he interacts. People have reported feeling a sudden cold hand grip their shoulder, hearing whispered Latin prayers in the dark, and smelling the faint scent of incense long after services have ended. In one particularly famous case from the 1970s, a group of bell ringers stayed behind after a late practice. As they chatted near the belfry, a hooded monk appeared in the doorway and slowly raised his hand as if to bless them. But when they stepped closer, the figure melted away into thin air. One of the ringers swore that his hand was freezing for hours afterward. Today, St. Peter's is still an active parish church. Tourists visit for its beautiful stained glass and striking tower, but many leave with an unexpected story. Some say the monk watches newcomers from the shadows, especially those who dare to walk alone down the central aisle. Number 4. St. Nicholas Church, Great Yarmouth, Norfolk. Standing tall on the Norfolk coast, St. Nicholas Church in Great Yarmouth is one of the largest parish churches in England and has served as a place of worship for centuries. Its grand structure, with soaring ceilings, medieval stonework and long rows of pews, creates a setting that is both beautiful and unnerving. By day it feels like a proud piece of English history. But by night, many believe the church takes on a much darker character. Worshippers and visitors have reported chilling experiences inside its walls. During services, some claim to have seen shadowy figures moving silently along the aisles, appearing and vanishing as if they were never there. A few parishioners have described feeling a sudden icy draft sweep past them, even when all doors and windows were shut. The most unsettling accounts involve people who, while kneeling in prayer, heard faint whispers directly in their ear. When they turned, there was no one close enough to speak. The churchyard surrounding St. Nicholas adds another layer of dread. Locals say that figures in old-fashioned clothing are sometimes spotted standing among the gravestones, watching silently before fading away into the night. One chilling legend tells of a spectral monk, believed to have been wronged centuries ago, who drifts through the church corridors. Witnesses describe his face as pale, his eyes sunken, and his steps completely soundless. Even clergy members have not been spared. A former vicar admitted privately that he once heard heavy footsteps echoing from the nave late at night while locking up. Thinking someone had been left behind, he searched every corner, but the building was empty. The sound, he said, stopped the moment he called out, leaving behind an oppressive silence. What makes these stories so unsettling is how they occur not only in the stillness of the night, but also during moments of prayer and worship. For some, this suggests the spirits tied to St. Nicholas Church are not simply restless souls passing through, but entities firmly bound to the sacred space itself. Number 5. St. Mary's Church, Clophill, Bedfordshire. Perched on a lonely hilltop, the ruined St. Mary's Church is one of the most feared places in Bedfordshire. Its crumbling tower and roofless nave might look romantic in daylight, but after sundown, it becomes something else entirely, a magnet for darkness. The church was abandoned in the 1840s, and ever since, it's been linked to stories of black magic, occult gatherings, and even animal sacrifices. In the 1960s, police were called to investigate a shocking discovery. Graves had been broken into, bones scattered, and a human skull placed on the altar in what appeared to be a ritual. The remains were never claimed, and no one was ever charged. Locals say the desecration awoke something ancient. Visitors report seeing shadowy figures pacing among the gravestones, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. There's a constant feeling of being watched, like the trees themselves are leaning closer to listen. Some hear chanting, low and rhythmic, drifting from the empty church long after midnight. One paranormal group set up cameras inside for a night investigation. Around 2 a.m., their audio picked up a voice, not a whisper, but a deep, commanding tone, speaking in a language none of them could identify. Moments later, the equipment shut down completely, batteries drained to zero. The most unnerving tale comes from a young couple who went exploring one Halloween. As they approached the altar, they noticed a ring of salt and burnt candle stubs. Suddenly, the temperature dropped so sharply they could see their breath. Then, from the tower above, came a slow, deliberate knock 3 times, each louder than the last. They didn't wait to find out what would happen next. Even now, villagers warn newcomers not to wander up the hill after dark. The church is more than haunted, it's said to be cursed, marked by forces that aren't tied to any single ghost, but to something much older and far more dangerous. And if you thought that was unsettling, the next church has a haunting so intense, it's been blamed for people fainting during services. Number 6. St. Giles Church, Camberwell, London. St. Giles Church stands tall in the heart of Camberwell, its Gothic spire cutting sharply into the skyline. By day, it's a serene house of worship. By night, it becomes a stage for one of London's most persistent hauntings. The church dates back to the 11th century, and its graveyard holds centuries of history, plague victims, Victorian paupers, and even those who died in the Blitz. But the most famous spirit here is the White Lady, believed to be the ghost of a young woman who died tragically on her wedding day. Witnesses describe her as ethereal, glowing faintly in the moonlight, her long veil trailing behind her as she drifts between the graves. Some claim she weeps softly, the sound carrying unnaturally far through the night air. Others say she appears inside the church itself, standing at the back during evening services, watching silently until she fades away. During World War II, the church was bombed and several people sheltering in the crypt were killed instantly. Since then, visitors report sudden pockets of freezing air in the basement, along with muffled cries and the metallic clang of the old crypt gates swinging shut on their own. One caretaker told of locking up one night when he heard footsteps on the upper gallery. Thinking someone was still inside, he called out, only for the steps to stop abruptly. He climbed the stairs to find the balcony empty, yet the temperature there was icy cold and his breath fogged in the air. Paranormal investigators have recorded a strange EVP here, most chillingly a woman's voice whispering, "It should have been me," followed by the sound of a faint organ chord, though the instrument was untouched. Some parishioners avoid the churchyard after sunset. Those who don't, say you must never follow the White Lady if she appears, for she will lead you straight into the darkest part of the graveyard and vanish, leaving you lost in pitch blackness. Number 7. St. Bartholomew's Church, East Sussex. St. Bartholomew's Church in East Sussex has stood for centuries, its weathered stone walls absorbing the prayers, whispers, and secrets of countless generations. On the surface, it appears like any other quaint English parish, a place for peace and reflection. But locals will tell you there's something deeply unsettling here. And it all centers around one figure, a hooded silhouette that has terrified visitors for decades. Those who encounter it describe the same chilling scene. They walk through the churchyard or along the narrow aisle inside the church, and there, just ahead, stands a tall figure cloaked in a heavy, dark hood. No face is visible. No hands emerge from the folds of the robe. It simply stands still as if waiting. But when you blink or take a single step closer, it vanishes without a sound. This isn't a rare sighting. Church caretakers, late-night passers-by, and even visiting clergy have claimed to see the hooded figure in broad daylight. Sometimes it appears near the altar, other times in the shadows of the graveyard, as if guarding something or someone buried there. One theory links the apparition to the medieval period, when monks from a nearby priory were said to use the church's grounds in secret. Another, far darker story, tells of a traitorous priest who betrayed his flock during a time of plague and was cursed to wander the grounds forever, unable to find peace. There's no record of violence here, no grand tragedy etched into the church's history. but perhaps that makes it more disturbing. Why would a spirit remain in a place of worship unless bound by something unholy? If you ever visit St. Bartholomew's, the villagers will warn you not to walk through the graveyard alone. And if you see the hooded figure, whatever you do, do not follow it. Number 8. St. Mary's Church, Whitby, North Yorkshire. Perched on the cliffside above the North Sea, St. Mary's Church in Whitby dominates the skyline with its Gothic architecture and weathered stone walls. By day, it is a stunning landmark, drawing tourists to admire the views of the harbor below. By night, it becomes a place where the living feel the weight of centuries-old secrets pressing down on them. Visitors and locals alike have reported hearing voices in the dead of night. These are not faint whispers but the unmistakable sounds of conversations, sometimes prayers, sometimes angry arguments, echoing through empty corridors. The sounds seem to come from nowhere, bouncing off walls, pews, and the cold stone floors. Then there are the shadows. Witnesses describe dark shapes moving along the aisles and staircases, never fully taking form. Some appear to vanish into the floor, others disappear into the walls. On a moonless night, the flicker of candlelight seems to animate them, making the shadows stretch and twist like something alive. One chilling account comes from a visitor photographing the interior. As they looked through the camera, a shadow passed behind the altar, yet when they turned in person the space was empty. Moments later, the camera captured a faint outline of a figure kneeling in the front pew, a shape that was never visible to the naked eye. Historians suggest the hauntings may stem from the church's connection to centuries of maritime tragedies. Sailors and their families often prayed here, some never to return from the sea. Locals believe these restless spirits are drawn back to the place where their loved ones prayed, their sorrow lingering in every corner. St. Mary's Church is a reminder that not all ghosts are violent. Some are silent observers, lingering in shadows, their stories trapped between walls and time. And if you think the shadows are the most unsettling thing, the next church's hauntings might make you question whether any place of worship is ever truly safe. Number 9. Street Magnus Cathedral, Orkney. Standing proudly on the Orkney Islands, St. Magnus Cathedral is a striking example of Romanesque architecture. Its thick stone walls and towering arches hold centuries of history, but not all of it is peaceful. Locals and visitors alike whisper about the restless Viking spirits that still roam the cathedral, and the chilling chanting that echoes through its empty halls at night. The cathedral was built in the 12th century in honor of St. Magnus, a Viking earl who was brutally executed by his cousin during a battle for power. His death, along with countless other violent Viking skirmishes in Orkney, is said to have left a lingering energy within the stones themselves. Some claim that on certain nights, when the wind whips through the nave just right, you can hear the faint sound of axes clashing, shields rattling, and warriors shouting as if the past refuses to rest. Witnesses have reported seeing ghostly figures in full Viking garb wandering the aisles, their faces obscured by helmets, carrying invisible weapons. At times, the spectral chanting begins suddenly, a deep, rhythmic chant in a language long lost, rising from the crypts below. Some visitors feel icy hands brush against their shoulders, or hear footsteps following them up the spiral staircases. One night, a local historian visiting alone described entering the cathedral just before midnight. As he walked down the main aisle, the air grew unnaturally cold, and the faint chant began. Shadows flickered along the walls, moving independently of the flickering torches he carried. When he turned to leave, he swore he saw a Viking warrior standing at the altar, staring directly at him before dissolving into mist. St. Magnus Cathedral is a living relic, not only of Orkney's architectural history but of the violence, power struggles and lives lost in the Viking Age. Those who walk its halls at night often leave with more than stories, they leave with the sense that they have witnessed something from a world long gone, yet impossible to escape. And if you thought the spectral presence of Viking warriors was unnerving, wait until you hear about the final church, where restless knights still patrol the bell tower long after their deaths. Number 10. St. Mary's Church, Warwick. St. Mary's Church in Warwick rises from the town's historic center, its spire visible for miles. By day, it is a place of calm, its stone walls echoing centuries of worship. By night, It tells a very different story, one of restless nights and ghostly bells that ring when no living hand is near. The hauntings here are said to date back to the medieval period, when knights and soldiers served the local lords and met violent ends during battles both inside and outside the town. Their spirits are believed to linger, trapped within the church walls they once sought refuge in. Witnesses describe armored figures pacing the aisles, the glint of swords faintly visible in torchlight, their movements deliberate and solemn, as if carrying out a duty that death cannot release them from. Parishioners have reported hearing the organ play faintly at odd hours, long after it was silenced, often accompanied by the clattering of armor across the stone floors. The church bells have a reputation of ringing on their own, usually at night without explanation. Locals whisper that the bells toll for the nights, a spectral reminder of battles past. One particularly chilling account comes from a late-night visitor who explored the tower. As he climbed the spiral staircase, he felt a presence behind him. Turning, he glimpsed a full knight in chainmail standing perfectly still, staring at him. When he blinked, the knight had vanished, leaving only the cold echo of footsteps descending the steps. Some believe the knight's restlessness is tied to the church's historical significance as a sanctuary during times of war. Others suggest that these spirits act as guardians, unable to leave the sacred space they once defended. Whatever the cause, anyone who spends a night inside St. Mary's will tell you the feeling of being watched is impossible to shake. St. Mary's Church is a haunting reminder that some souls refuse to rest, and some battles continue long after life has ended. Visitors leave with a sense of awe and unease, knowing they have glimpsed echoes of the past, trapped forever between stone and shadow. You've just walked through some of the most haunted churches in the UK. Ghostly figures, restless nights, mysterious chanting, and apparitions have all left their mark on these sacred spaces. Now, which of these stories chilled you the most? Have you ever experienced anything supernatural in a church? Share your experiences in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey into the haunted and unexplained, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more terrifying legends and real ghost stories from across the UK.